Hi, I'm Greg Wilson, and I'm here with Kermit Leveridge at Lodge Studios at 23 Abingdon Square, Northampton. And we're here to speak to a man whose work and wisdom has made a huge impact on our lives and the lives of many others. The writer of Watchmen, V for Vendetta, From Hell, Promethea, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, etc., etc., the immense Alan Moore. A lot of the stuff we're going to talk about here revolves around a film made back in 2003 called The Mindscape of Alan Moore, where it explored Alan's background, his work, and also his magical ideas. We're here at the behest of Festival 23, which takes place in South Yorkshire between July the 22nd and July the 24th. This is the next in a series of countercultural gatherings that have taken place during recent times. The questions are a mixture of our own and those of Festival 23. Our own trajectory, that's Kermit and I, following on from a number of super weird happenings that we held in the past few years, have taken us to 23-day in Liverpool, the Cosmic Trigger weekend, also in Liverpool, Daisy Ellis Campbell's incredible play of Robert Anton Wilson's book. Then we were under the Austerity Bridge in Northampton, which was a countercultural event that was held there, talks, and also in Brighton, which was only a few weeks ago for Adventures on the Edge of Culture. It's been a trip to say the least.
Yeah, it has.
So hi Alan, it's great to see you again.
Thank you for doing this for us.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time out. Counterculture, I mean, that's kind of the main theme that's linked everything together. So could you expand on it, what it was in the past, where it might be found now? And also, you mentioned something in Brighton about when you were talking to the people at Northampton, the students, and the idea of the cultural disconnect, the fact that things that we took for granted that would continue to be known, younger people maybe are losing them.
Yeah, losing them now.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that old countercultural people, such as myself, tend to fall into is that we assume that everybody has got an immense warehouse of dead facts in their head like we have. So I'd been asked by the estimable local politician Tony Clark, and it's not very often you'll hear me say that about a politician, but Tony Clark, when he was an MP, was the only MP with an intercity firm tattoo.
Oh, right.
Which I think I've got immense respect for him. Absolutely. It's but Tony had got me up to the Georges Avenue campus in Northampton because there were a number of students there who felt that they should engage with politics, but really didn't like the options that were on offer.
Yes.
And they had heard that I was into alternative politics and anarchy. And so they basically asked me to go up there and talk about these sort of alternative concerns. And when I got up there, I was talking to these young people. I have to stop myself saying kids. Basically, anybody under 50 to me is a kid. It's so nothing is meant by it. But talking to these brilliant young people up there, and I forget exactly how the conversation went, but it might have been something like I was saying, well, of course, there was the author Aldous Huxley, and they looked at me with slight frowns, and I expect, Aldous Huxley, he wrote the great dystopian novel Brave New World, and he also wrote Heaven and Hell, The Doors of Perception, when he was experimenting with psychedelic drugs, and him and Humphrey Osmond sort of founded the psychedelic movement, and it was them basically who were the people behind Timothy Leary. And again, they looked at me blankly, and so I said, well, Timothy Leary, basically, he was a disciple of Huxley and of Osmond, and he was a kind of an LSD messiah who sort of, in the 60s, popularised LSD throughout the counterculture. Again, they were kind of looking at me, right, a counterculture. At this point, I realised I'm talking a completely different language. Yeah. It's not these people's fault. Yeah. It's probably not my fault, but something needs to be done. Yeah. And at the end of the talk, I said, actually, I think that what you probably need is a counterculture, because there hasn't been one for a while.
Yeah.
and this led to the Under the Austerity, the Beach event up at the campus, where the idea was, let's talk about counterculture and what it was and what it could be. Because I was very much influenced by having read John Higgs' splendid book, The KLF, Chaos, Magic and the Band That Burned a Million Quid, which is that is a catchy title.
Yes.
And reading through that, I thought that John had done an extraordinary job, and I gather that I think Bill Drummond feels pretty much the same way.
Oh, great. I didn't know what...
Well, Bill's reaction, I think, was as bewildered as mine, in that even though we are both people who feature in the book and in those events back at that time, we had no idea what was going on.
All the other stuff that's connected with it. That was
We
going on.
needed somebody like John Higgs to actually glue all of that together, so we knew what had happened to us.
Yeah.
But one of the things that John points out in that book is the apparent death of counterculture in around 1990, when...
About the time the burning of the money.
Well, yeah, it was around about the time when, I believe, Bill and Jimmy, they did... It was a music industry award event.
The Brit Awards.
The Brit Awards,
yeah.
where they went along with Extreme Noise Terror,
Yeah.
and they also took a dead sheep,
Yeah.
which I recently found out that Megan, who is one of Megan Lucas, who is a mainstay of the newly emergent Arts Lab that we've got going.
Okay.
Turns out her sister-in-law actually provided the dead sheep for Bill and Jimmy to leave on the steps of the venue after Bill had sprayed the audience with machine gun bullets. They were blanks, you know, which shows great restraint, I think, upon Bill's part. But after that, I mean, Bill and Jimmy, they deleted their back catalogue, which must have cost them a lot more than £1 million.
Millions.
They went to the Isle of Jura, where Orwell finished 1984.
No, I didn't know that.
I didn't know.
Yeah, the other big dystopian novel next to Huxley's.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was where Orwell finished 1984. So Bill and Jimmy went there with Gimpo
Yep.
Yes.
and Jim Reed, but not the Jim Reed from
Not the country and western
which
That's Jim Reeves.
Oh,
no,
sorry.
Jim Reed from the Jesus and Mary chain.
Oh, right. Okay.
Which I believe, unless I just assumed this, but I believe that Bill Drummond actually told me to my face that was Jim Reed from the Jesus and Mary chain, whereas John Higgs has revealed, no, that's another Jim Reed who's a television producer.
I can find out.
But
Is it
Bill
stable,
Drummond,
mate?
Bill Drummond, you can't trust a word he says.
Oh, is he one of
You
those?
can't. But
Is he one of those?
he is.
Oh, sorry,
But well, you can trust the fact that they really did burn £1 million
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they bought the film of it round to my living room.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
showed
seen a
it.
grainy thing of it.
It's great. It's like I really like a film where you can see every penny of the budget up there on the screen, you know. And but after that, I mean, that was signalled the end of rave culture, dance music.
Yeah.
All right, it still went on for a while after that, but the raw beating heart of rave
aspect.
it had gone.
And John Higgs, in the book, he sort of kind of says it was the beginning of the 21st century as
But
well.
he talks about what lineal time or
Yeah,
something. did he
that's
say?
that.
It's almost a hidden period.
It's like it was the end of something. That burning of the money was like a full stop to everything that came before it, and it all changed. And
It
everything, the music business became really corporate. Everything became extremely corporate. Big business came into everything, and everything changed. The whole landscape of culture has changed now because of that, because of those things. You know, the money and the greed and the.
Well, it was a strange time. I mean, like in 1993, I announced that for some reason, mainly, I was quite drunk. It was my birthday. I was down at a biker pub. I suddenly announced that, all right, I am a magician, and from henceforth I will be conducting myself as a magician. I'd got no idea what that meant or what it would entail. You know, I thought perhaps a hat with moons and stars on it, but I hadn't really thought it through a lot beyond that. And in 1994, I had my first, as I believe, genuine magical experience, which kind of changed everything. It was shortly after that that I had Bill and Jimmy coming to my house to ask why the fuck they had burned £1 million on the Isle of Jura. You know,
Can I ask you, what was your first thing that you considered to be a magical act that you did? I'm quite interested.
My first, well, this becomes difficult because I think my first magical act I only recognised retroactively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it was, I had just, it was when I was around 25. We had just had, me and my first wife Phyllis, we'd just had Leah, our eldest daughter. We were living up on a sink estate up to, in the Eastern District of Northampton. And I had just quit work on the assumption that I was going to have, this keeps going out, I was going to have to, I felt I'd always wanted to make my living doing something that I enjoyed, and I decided that, all right, if I don't do it now, I'll probably never do it. Then we found out that we'd got a baby on the way, which was actually, I had to give it some thought, but it was more of an incentive.
Yes.
Because I thought, once the baby's born, I'm never going to have the courage to do this.
Yes.
So I spent about the first 6 months just doing nothing very much at all. I was planning huge science fiction epics that I would draw and write myself, despite the fact that I'd never drawn or written a comic strip in the past.
Yeah.
But people would just recognise the innate genius in these things. And yeah, it would be years in the telling. After about 3 or 4 months, I'd got one page inked, another page kind of penciled vaguely, and another page with just some loose scribble at the top of it. And I thought, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this thing that you're clearly never going to finish? And I thought, you're doing this because you're never going to finish it. Because if you don't finish it, then you'll never have to submit it, and you'll never have to face the possibility of rejection.
Failure.
You'll never have to face the possibility of somebody saying, yeah, this is rubbish, you were never as good as you thought you were, you are never going to have a career in because then you wouldn't even have the dream. I think that this is what stops a lot of talented people. It makes them think, no, I'd rather that I could have been a contender.
Yes.
I'd rather keep that. Keep that safe rather than risk it. And yet that paralyses you. You're never going to move forward.
You say something in the Mindscape about having a soul and being too scared to have a soul because it's precious, and it's kind of feels similar to that. You don't want to give it over because somebody might say and hurt you.
Someone might trample on it.
I mean, art, if it's anything, has got to be an expression of our soul, whatever the soul is, whatever we're defining as the soul. The self is perhaps a better word. The self with a capital S, the true self, the highest self.
Would you say that was essence? You know,
yes, if you want. Yeah, I mean, but it's like I was thinking, okay, so you're doing this to avoid actually finishing the work and being judged. What you should do, I mean, there's nobody holding you back, and there's nobody who's going to help you. So this is just down to you. And you can't pretend that, don't say, oh, well, if I hadn't have had a wife and baby depending upon me, then maybe I could have. Don't take that coward's way out.
Yeah.
You know what you've got to do. Have a look round, see if you can find a place that looks like they might want a comic strip. As it happened, I noticed that Sounds, the music paper back then, they'd previously had 2 comic strips running, and for about the last few months they'd only had 1. So I thought that might be a possibility.
Yeah.
So in the space of a couple of weeks, I wrote and drew the first 2 episodes of a comic strip and sent it in.
Yeah.
We didn't have a phone at that point, but 2 days later I got a telegram.
A telegram?
From the editor at Sounds, Alan Lewis, very nice man, who just
telegram.
he just said, telegram from Mr. Mungo.
Yeah,
And it was, and I rushed across to the single drug dealer's phone box on the other side of the estate, and he told me that, he asked me when I could start, and there wasn't any rejection. There was just my fear of rejection.
That was
the thing that could have derailed my entire career.
Yeah.
Just that fear.
Yeah.
So overcoming that was my first, taking responsibility for myself was my first magical act. And I believe that is probably everybody's first magical act. The moment when you think, no, I'm not a victim of circumstance. I am an autonomous individual in this universe to make of it what I will and what I can. That it's all down to me. It's all down to the individual. The individual has got much more power than they believe.
Yes.
They have been disempowered by a few thousand years of this civilization. Into believing that they are unimportant cogs in the machine, that they're spokes in the wheel, that they are less than full human beings. But that was my first magical act. And getting back, there was a lot of stuff going on around that 1990s period. Bill and Jimmy were burning the money. I was wondering whether I had really discovered the truth about magic or whether I had more prosaically just gone mad, which is always a consideration.
Yeah, always has to be considered.
And and we were waiting for another counterculture, because surely to God there'd be another one along in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and we believed it.
And
there always had been.
Yeah.
Some of them were more complete and more powerful than others, but there had always been a counterculture along, and we waited, and then in 1994 we got Britpop, which Jarvis Cocker accepted. Was sort of it wasn't a musical movement. It was something that was imposed from above.
Yeah, it was put on to the bands.
Yes,
it was
and
created
it was
by the enemy and things like that.
Just in time for the emergence of Tony Blair and New Labour 2 years later.
Yeah. From Cool Britannia.
Yeah, Cool Britannia. Yeah. Noel Gallagher shaking hands with Tony Blair at number 10 Downing Street. This wasn't a counterculture.
No.
This was just an extension of the ordinary culture that was being imposed above all of us.
The hierarchy, the gentry, whatever you want to call them there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was the end of counterculture. It never happened again. Here we are, 2015 or whenever, when we did when we did the thing up at the college. And I mean, like, there were some interesting things that came up during that. I mean, when I was talking to Scroobius Pip, and he raised the point that countercultures never succeed, which is true. They never supplant the culture. They always think that, yes, we're going to sweep away the prevailing culture and we're going to impose our lovely, positive culture to replace it. That doesn't work.
Never happens.
That never happens. What does happen is that the counterculture will be assimilated
It becomes
Boy.
part of the
Yeah, it
established-
becomes part of the established culture.
Yes.
So you should make your countercultures as toxic or psychedelic as possible, so that if they are assimilated and swallowed by the parent culture,
Yes.
the parent culture is going to be feeling pretty weird
Yeah.
for the
Yes.
next couple of decades.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and I also realised, talking to Pip and to the other people there, that in a way, counterculture has always been there before we had a name for it. And in a way, counterculture is a necessary component of culture. That you can't have, culture has to have something to criticise it.
A counterpoint. Yes.
It's a lot. I once heard somebody talking about Marxism and saying that Marxism was capitalism's best way of talking about itself. And I thought,
yeah.
that's got an element of truth
Yeah,
in
it
it.
has, hasn't it?
It's capital's best way of actually criticising itself and talking about itself.
Yeah.
And I think that that is
Yeah.
true with counterculture. I think that counterculture inevitably emerges from culture, and it's a necessary part.
It's assimilated by culture.
Yeah, and it's assimilated, and in that assimilation, culture is revised. It becomes different. I mean, the ideas of the 60s, they all got swallowed. They all became just a few psychedelic swirls on the front of
an
modern-
album sleeve or
yeah,
something.
That's
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
But the genuine ideas of the 60s, they were assimilated as well. And they changed culture massively. I mean, we're still not living in a perfect world by any means, but the advances.
Yeah, little bits get absorbed.
Well,
into
you
the-
know, I mean, things that I first remember, it was the counterculture that made me aware of 60s feminism, that made me aware of gay and queer issues, even a lot of race issues and things like that. I was first reading honest reports about these things in the underground press.
Yeah.
It was immensely useful.
I
And
suppose that is where you get honesty. You know,
Well-
these little self-printed magazines that you collect and read.
yeah,
from
that
different
aren't
groups,
put out by a global conglomerate, that are not been touched by the hand of Rupert Murdoch.
I think that's one of the things we're looking for now as a new media, because even like the established sources of media that we've had for years and years, we can't trust anything. I mean, not that we could necessarily trust them before, but we felt that there was some sort of non-bias there, which now is not the case. So people are looking, and there's also like a dissolution of everything, that it's very difficult. Like, say for example, at one time musically, people, if they were into like something a bit edgy, they'd listen to John Peel on, in the week on Radio 1, or if they like black music, they'd buy Blues and Soul magazine or listen to the Specialist.
Sure.
Now there's any number of things, and so there's this 20 people listening to something here and 50 there, and at one time it was kind of all focused on the one moment.
It's almost a collection of filter bubbles.
Yes,
You know, and this is probably not just music and culture. This, more dangerously, this is probably politics.
Yeah.
That there are people who are just in their filter bubble, absorbing the ideas that they like and feel comfortable with.
Yes.
Which, of course, was the exact opposite of what counterculture was about. It was about exposing you to as many ideas as possible, whether you like them or not. It was exposing you to ideas that you would probably find uncomfortable. That was part of it. It was, I mean, I just saw the first issue of the newly reanimated It.
The Official Times.
Which is issuing from somewhere around the
Oh, right,
vicinity
okay.
of the marvellous Heathcote Williams. The first issue,
Came up with Daisy the other day.
the first issue has got a picture of Jimmy Corty's dystopian model village, which I'm proudly wearing the T-shirt of. And it's a brilliant magazine. It's got everything that was always great about IT. It's full of brilliant articles that are talking, say, about Syriza, the Greek anti-austerity party.
Yes, yeah.
And they're pointing out things like, the popularity of Syriza is actually based upon the fact that they did say, look, we Greeks should put the 1940s behind us. We should remember that we are all Greeks first, which is effectively, that is a very inclusive policy, but it's also including a lot of fascists. That is why it is popular with the right and left, because there are a lot of people who are a couple of millimetres away from the Golden Dawn, but and there was a great number of articles about the ongoing state of emergency in Paris, and how it seems to have been rolled out into a sort of as if this is the future. That it's not just an unusual state of emergency. This is where we are now.
How it's going to be all the time.
There's a great bit about the refugee camps, which says that actually public support and the volunteer work is probably, yes, you can see why it's necessary, but it's kind of not working the way that it should do, because if anything it might be even making it worse, because it's giving the governments it's the governments who need to get involved, and it's giving them an excuse not to. Oh well, there's all these volunteers handling these people, so we don't need to actually adjust our policies at all. No, it's back at the top of its range. It's sort of giving really difficult information, a contrarian view that you're never going to get in any other paper.
It was interesting the other day that the Facebook page of the Liverpool School of Language, Music, Dream and Pun, which had been run, I think that they brought it down 40 years after an event they'd done, basically a Carl Jung event, which was 50 years after I think he had that dream.
And, the whole dream.
And they did it as a way of basically letting the next phase begin. They announced that, and that was only 2 days ago. It seems that there's a number of things that are happening at once here.
There seems to be.
What do you think of serendipities and all these kind of things? What's your take
Well, I mean, like, I am a long-term optimist. I have always been thinking, yes, I can see signs I can see bright green shoots that maybe the culture that I desperately want to exist is just waiting to happen.
Glimpses of it.
So I have been disappointed in the past, so I'm being cautious here, but this feels pretty good to me.
Ourselves, we felt this thing, this shift in consciousness, meeting people like John Higgs and Daisy Harris and certain other groups, and Tim, and then me and Greg have found, doing our own thing in the music, we found that there's lots of different groups.
Things
doing
the
same,
mycelium.
the mycelium network, as Daisy puts it.
That it seems to be emerging, and
seems
things
to be
are crossing
emerging,
over
and when
now.
we're crossing over, we're making connections with each other.
So that would be the network of with mushrooms.
Yes.
The underground. They're in fact they're all connected.
They're all
under the ground.
connected.
But they're hitting a point, don't they? And something comes up. It's a
If
bit like
if there's enough a collection of them at one point, these spores, then they make a mushroom. But
it's like the International Poetry event in '65 at the Albert Hall, where Ginsberg was. That there was all disparate.
It's a catalysing thing, isn't it?
Yeah, because they didn't know there were that many. They just thought. I think it was a rich American who hired the Albert Hall because there's a big hall around here.
What's the biggest place
and she
around
had
here?
money.
Sure.
And then I think 10,000 people turned up, and all of a sudden they realised that there was something going on. There's this kind of things on the, obviously not a main point. I don't think you could promote an event. I think it has to something has to naturally.
It has to happen naturally.
Organic. It has to be organic.
This was where. Because otherwise you've got Britpop, aren't you?
Yes.
You've got something that is artificial, that is being imposed upon the situation rather than sort of growing from the ground up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's. yeah, back then, yeah, there was the thing at the Albert Hall. There was the Dialectics of Liberation at the Roundhouse.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
With Allen Ginsberg and was it Michael X?
Not sure.
I think, or Stokely Carmichael.
Oh, yeah.
Stokely
yes.
Carmichael.
Yes.
I think that there was a bit of a contretemps between Stokely Carmichael and Allen Ginsberg. Well, no, mainly on Stokely Carmichael's point. He was more or less saying, yeah, the psychedelic left are irrelevant to the black struggle is the only one that's real, you know. And Ginsberg took it very, very well and sort of said, well, you know, I'm sorry that you feel like that, but I feel that there is something to offer here. But the fact that this stuff was being talked about.
Definitely, yeah.
And you get enough of these events and that changes the cultural atmosphere.
Yeah.
And a big thing about today, why I feel that this time it could be a bit more than a mirage. This time it could be something that is a bit more than just my wishful thinking.
Yeah.
The reason I think that is because we have probably never needed a counterculture more than in our present day. I mean, like, as a result, at the end of that, the event up at the Georges Avenue campus, at the end of Under the Austerity of the Beach, we'd got about 10 minutes, quarter of an hour left, and I said, right, has anybody got any questions? And there was a woman in the front row, her name was Celia, and she put her hand up, and we said yes, and she said, yeah, can anybody tell me how I can stay here and not go home to a life where I felt that nobody understands, nobody has these ideas but me.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, that's good. Anybody who thinks that we should take this further, they should leave their details with the young man over there and we'll see what happens.
Yes.
And what happened was the formation of a group of people who wanted to do something countercultural. Our first meeting was spent working out where our second meeting was going to be because the venue was being closed down. And we also wondered about what we should call ourselves. And there were quite a few people there, about 15 or 16 people. The second meeting in mid-January, where it was bitterly cold, only about 5 people turned up. And I said, well, that is a little bit disappointing, but on the other hand, it does give us the opportunity to stage a coup. And
always the optimist.
so I sort of said that, look, unless we come up with a better name, I'm suggesting that we call ourselves Northampton Arts Lab, because that's what David Bowie would have wanted. And one of the guys there said, are you really going to play that card? And I said, yes, I really am. So we're the Northampton Arts Lab. I mean, I was in the original Northampton Arts Lab in the 60s and 70s. But it's back, and we've got our first magazine out. I hope that Alistair, was he sending copies?
Peasants with Pens.
Peasants with Pens, have you got this?
I haven't
No,
got
I've
a
not
copy
received
yet,
my copy yet.
I'll get one to you. I'll get one to you.
Thank you.
But we've got our first gig coming up, and I was talking to Megan yesterday because I let younger people than me handle the internet side of it, which is where most of it happens, you know. I just sort of type out my articles and turn up for the gigs, you know. Yeah. But she was saying that we've got 60 members now, which is much bigger than the Arts Lab ever was in the 60s, and it's much more diverse.
Yeah.
And a lot of these, you know, I mean, we're also in contact with Arts Emergency, which is the group that Josie Long does a lot of work for. And I mean, they are making the point that, the arts are in terrible danger. They're being, you know, removed from educational syllabuses. They're sort of, they're not being funded. So in a situation like that, what choice is there? But just do it yourself.
Do it yourself.
Form an arts lab. You don't need permission to do this stuff.
You don't.
You know, it's you can do it, and it's surprisingly easy. It's a huge amount of fun.
Yes.
and you may produce something that you're really proud of. You'll be working with other artists. You'll be seeing how art happens,
Yes.
which is a brilliant education. And we've already, I believe that there's an arts lab that's formed in Brighton.
Yep.
We've started to do our own little magazine as well. Going to start that.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
And
Well, that was from what you said
That's from
at
what
the
you said at the
Northampton thing.
Northampton thing. Go out there and do it. This DIY creation. Make these things. Put them out there yourself.
And we can all exist in a net if we all know about each other. I mean, the modern world is a lot more interconnected than the world of the 60s and 70s. It's a lot more integrated. We can stay in touch with each other. We can support each other.
Yeah.
We can trade ideas and information and knowledge.
Instantly.
Yeah. It's sort of, I think that, I mean, for many years it had bothered me that basically when we used to do our crappy little poetry and arts lab magazines back in 1969, 1970, we did them on a big duplicated drum. You had to sort of actually type onto a wax stencil.
Right.
And then it rolled over.
And then any illustrations would be done with a stylus, which was basically a nail in a plastic pen holder, which you would draw these. I found that Beardsley-esque illustrations with long sweeping lines tended to work best, you know. But you'd print these up. After you'd typed them all onto the stencils, you decorated the stencils, you would stand there cranking the side of the printer machine, and then eventually you would have all of the pages arranged around a table, and you'd all walk round and somebody would staple them.
That's like going back to basics.
It would take you
really.
ages. And if back then we had access, we could never have dreamed about the technology that is available now that would have made all of that so blissfully easy.
Yeah.
And I also remember back in the 70s when the punk explosion happened, and I knew loads of people who were going out there, going to a recording studio, or they'd hire a little recording studio for a day, and they'd make their own records and they'd put them out on their own record label. Again, that took a lot of effort and a lot of work back then. These days, it could all be done really easily. Anything can be done really easily. And what distressed me was the fact that, so there's all this potential and possibility, and nobody seems to be using it. It's all being used for passive entertainment. There doesn't seem to be the kind of, the counterculture that would have been possible back then. If we'd have had this equipment, there just doesn't seem to be the energy for it anymore. That does seem to be something which I think is adjusting.
Yes.
I think maybe we need 15, 20 years to get used to a new world.
Yeah.
That sort of, because culturally, it looks like after pursuing the future so energetically, through the 1950s, the 1960s, when we had all of those rocket tail fins on the cars, and we were going to see all of our science fiction films, and we were all imagining that we'd have jetpacks, and we wanted to be in the Jetsons, So we raced through the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, with these science fiction dreams. And then, round about 1990, we suddenly thought, oh shit, this is the future. There's this internet thing emerging. This is the future in some way. And we weren't prepared for it. And we froze. Culturally, we froze. We thought, right, let's just mark time. Let's just march on the spot at the threshold of the future. Let's just repeat all of the culture that we're comfortable with from the previous sort of 30 or 40 years. Because we don't know how to handle this new world that has suddenly emerged all around us and which seems far too complex.
Yes.
We don't know what we're doing. I think it's similar to that moment in the early 20th century, round about between 1910 and 1920, round about then, where you suddenly got you got Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, the first piece of modern music. You got the First World War, which was a modern war in that it had prototype tanks. It also had archers with bows and arrows in the same conflict, and it had sort of chlorine gas, and it had it was the modern world meeting the world that had gone before very violently.
Real mashup.
You've got all the stuff in John Higgs' book, Stranger Than We Can Imagine, where he's talking about how Einstein was revolutionising the entire field of physics with his special and general theories of relativity, how literature was exploding into Joyce and the moderns.
It's basically
Eliot.
100 years ago.
It all seems to go quantum.
Basically 100 years ago, where we suddenly were moving out, we were moving into a different sort of industrial age. I mean, 100 years before that, around the juncture of the 18th and 19th centuries, that had been when industry had first started to bite down and had changed everything. By the time of the First World War, it was clearly stepping up a grade into something very, very different.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what's happening now. That we are 20 years maybe into this new world,
Yeah.
and we're just starting to see its wonderful and appalling possibilities. And we, I think, possibly are just starting to culturally respond to them.
Yeah, yeah.
That might be what all of this is about, that we're finally catching up with the future.
Yep.
You speak about a culture of steam. I've heard you talk about it like that. Like that's what we're becoming.
That's almost like the kind of the key question. I mean, certainly last year, 2015, I was very aware from the mindscape of what you'd said about information doubling and going past the boiling point from a fluid culture to a culture of steam. I think also interestingly in the meantime is like with the internet, I kind of noted when they started having clouds for information, because there's so much information they've got to put in. That's where steam would go. That we're at that point now that it's moving at such a speed. Can you say more about that?
I mean, like when I did the Mindscape thing, which was basically me sitting there in a chair with an enormously long cigarette, sort of talking in a real kind of East Midlands monotone. So no change there, you know. But the essential thing about culture turning to steam, the fact that everything was speeding up so much that we seem to be heading for what I referred to as a phase transition period, which is a phase transition period is where one state suddenly and chaotically changes to another state, like the boiling point of water.
Yes.
And I said that I felt that we were approaching a kind of cultural boiling point. But as you note, with the emergence of the cloud, I mean, back then it did sound perhaps a bit extreme and a bit weird, and the sort of thing that you might expect an occultist who clearly does a lot of drugs to say. But I think that events since then have made it look a lot more conservative as a kind of a guess at the future. You know, this kind of ties in with what I'm saying. You know, these are really extraordinary times now. It seems that the people who run the world are pulling up the drawbridge.
Yes, it does.
Who they are trying to extract the very last ounces of blood and flesh and marrow that they can from the population to shore up their own power and wealth in a world where all of those things are quaking and cracking.
Yeah.
It's
It is falling apart, isn't it?
it is falling. Or we are having. I mean, I was a big admirer from the 70s onward in Alvin Toffler, the futurologist,
Okay.
who wrote he wrote a book called Future Shock, and then he wrote another book. This was with his wife Heidi Toffler, who I think was providing as many of the ideas as Alvin Toffler. But in his book, The Third Wave, he was talking about a kind of a theory of culture and civilization, where he was saying that, yeah, the basic state was the hunter-gatherer state. Then the first wave happened. The first wave was agriculture. It made more sense because I think for hunter-gathering, you need a lot of ground to support a very few people. I think for a tribe of about 20 people, you'd need an area about the size of Manhattan to support them through hunter-gathering. Agriculture made a lot more sense. So the agricultural wave started to ripple out across the planet, transforming everything. It's pretty much reached everywhere by now. There are still a couple of places, like say Papua New Guinea, where they don't have agriculture. But more or less, agriculture has, this first wave has rippled out across the planet. The second wave was industry. He gave an approximate date of, let's say 1550, around about the time when the printing press was invented. He said this was the start of the industrial era. And industry was the second wave. And that rippled out across the planet. And yes, there are a lot of places that still don't have industry, but pretty much it has covered the world. He said in 1956, again, an arbitrary date, but that was the date where white-collar workers in America outnumbered blue-collar workers for the first time. And he said, yeah, that's another shift. That is the beginning of a third wave. That might be what we're seeing now. He didn't have, it's always difficult to name these waves except in retrospect. The best we can say now is post-industrial, you know, which doesn't really tell you anything except that it's the wave that comes after this one. But obviously the internet has a huge part to play in that. That is neurologically wiring up the world in a very different way. It is making new things possible, and it's making some new things inevitable. I remember seeing an interesting front cover of New Scientist, this was perhaps about a year ago, that was Get Ready for Democracy 2.0. It was saying that our leaders will have to start working with the concept that anything that they do or say or plan will become known. That we will all have to get used to the idea of living in a completely transparent world where there are no secrets. And yes, obviously that will change the way that our leaders behave. They will either have to say, yes, we know we're bastards and we're doing it anyway, which would be one thing, or they will have to reform their behaviour, which I think is pretty much what we're seeing now. The struggle between those two things. You know, we've got some people who are digging their heels in, mentioning no names, but yes, I am looking at you, Donald Trump.
That whole thing.
You've got some people who are saying, yes, let's take values back to the 1940s or 50s when I understood things. Yeah, UKIP. Most politicians, they seem to, a lot of culture seems to be attempting to escape to the past. do anything other than actually deal with the future, engage with the present.
I mean, it's interesting you preempted, because we
Yeah,
were
we
going
was
to ask
gonna-
you a
yeah.
story of a more
Of a
positive
more
future.
positive future.
Because we're getting just negative stories
Yeah.
about what the future will be. And I think that something was mentioned in Brighton on this kind of level about more people should be talking positively about what's ahead.
Well, one of the things that I always thought was that there was a big problem with how we thought about the future. That seemed to divide into two camps. That on the one hand, there were those people who were saying, well, we're all doomed. There's going to be a nuclear war or an environmental collapse. It's inevitable. We're all doomed. So there is no future. And there are those other sorts of people who say, yeah, I mean, there is a future, but it'll have, smaller radios and televisions and perhaps electric cars, but it'll otherwise be pretty much the same as today. We'll all feel the same as we do now. We'll just have more gadgets. So since the future is going to be pretty much the same as today, no need to prepare for a future. In either instance, if you think the world is going to end, there's no need to prepare for a future. If you think the world is going to be pretty much the same as it is today, there's no need to prepare for a future. We really should be preparing for a future, because there is going to be one, and it is going to feel very different to today, and it's going to be very different to today. All of our values are changing, mutating, becoming something new. Concepts that have sustained us for a great deal of time are falling by the wayside. Ideas of nation, that's one that has got to go. Because we haven't even had it for that long. I mean, from what I understand, most of the immigrants turning up at Ellis Island in America in, say, the 19th century, they knew which village they'd come from. They didn't know which country. Wow. Because they didn't need to know which country. There didn't need to be a concept of country. Your concerns were the concerns of your village, of where you were living. So the idea of the nation is one that our leaders generally trot out when they need us to do something national, like have a war or sort of something like that. But I think that the internet itself is erasing national boundaries. I mean, like, I work in Northampton. I very seldom leave Northampton. I very seldom leave one end of my living room, because the other end, they do things differently there, you know. And it's, but at the same time, my work appears in most of the countries of the world. We've just sold Jerusalem to China, I believe, which I'm really worried about that Lucia Joyce chapter, because I don't see how, I mean, that's not even English, so I don't know how you can translate it, but hats off to the Chinese, they're willing to give it a go. But so what does nationality mean anymore? I mean, like, I can talk if my grandmother, I don't think she ever left the country in her life. My father and grandfather, they generally left the country when there was a war and they were conscripted. So actually communicating with somebody in another country, it would have taken a few weeks. Distance meant something then. Geography meant something. You know, these days that has all been eroded by the invention of instant communication and the internet.
There are no roads.
There are no borders anymore. The map is evaporating.
You see, like on a positive, you know, from a musical side, which is my direction, obviously what's happened since 2000 has been, you know, this whole celebrity culture, pop stars have been talent show, you know, kids, talented but not creative. And it's been like this 10, 15 year period where it's been soma for the people in lots of ways. But what I find really interesting and positive, my son's 17, he's in a band and everything, and he at this point now, they've rejected that
Rejected all
last
that
50.
stuff,
They're not even interested. They're not there with it. They don't look at the charts anymore because that's been killed. So but what they do is they look back on the internet and they're just as into bands like Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and Toots and the Maytals as they are with Tame Impala or the Skints or modern contemporary, and they put it all together. And I think they've kind of rejected what popular culture says they should have.
I think this is the essence of postmodernism, which everybody tends to dislike the term, but if it's about anything, it's about the point that we've reached in culture where we suddenly become aware that we've got this huge treasure house at our back, that we've got all of these ideas that were discarded, not because there was anything wrong with them, but because we had a newer, prettier idea to distract us.
Yeah.
So we've got all of these musical ideas and artistic ideas and literary ideas that we've not done anything with, laying there in this huge scrap pile behind us.
Yes.
And that's their legacy.
Yes.
That belongs to them.
That is their
not
legacy.
us.
And what they can do is to fit what they can do. What countercultures have always done. I mean, in the 60s, that was a counterculture which it was taking immense amounts from the Victorian era, like early steampunks, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was swiping, it was misappropriating bits of the culture of many other lands, particularly India, and sort of a bit of chinoiserie, and sort of all of this. It was
and ancient stuff as well.
ancient stuff. That they were occultism. They were putting together, gluing together a culture of their own out of the fragments of the culture of other lands and other times.
I see that happening now, though.
That is, I think,
do
exactly
see
what
it
is happening now,
in
and
a big
especially
way.
with the generation that you're talking about.
Yeah, and
I feel really strongly that we've got to connect with that the younger people, that it's all good and well to a level us talking about this at a certain age and talking about how but unless they take it and run with it, they're the ones that have got the energy and they're going to take it forward. And as I say, I'm seeing a lot of very positive things. Also the technology, whereby for people like myself, I'm stumbling through it still, whereas it's natural, they've grown up with it, it's part of their lives.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say, when you were saying that about, I find like a lot of the ideas of Robert Anton Wilson, I seen them in a lot of stuff that I've been reading and watching on the TV and didn't realise it before. Didn't realise it's secret and it's slipped around the back.
The ideas of Robert Anton Wilson are, I think, central certainly central to the way that I am conducting my life at the moment. Back in 76, something like that, I was down visiting my late friend and mentor Steve Moore on the top of Shooters Hill, and Steve, who was much more connected with the sort of the London fantasy and comic scene than I was, he'd got this new trilogy of books that he'd just come across that he wondered if I might be interested in, which was the Illuminatus trilogy by Wilson and Shea. I devoured them and I was absolutely blown away. I thought, this is great. This is all of these frankly ridiculous, paranoid conspiracy stories that are so popular amongst the right and the left wing, but it's making it all, instead of being a debilitating illness, which is the way that people like David Icke have tended to to make this field of inquiry, they made it into this brilliant intellectual game that was actually really enlightening, and it was almost like an anarchist primer. An occult anarchist primer. Well, it does, and I didn't take it as far as Bill Drummond. I mean, Bill was, because also around the same time I'd got a friend in Liverpool who was telling me about this great thing that Ken Campbell was doing, where he was going to be doing a 24-hour version of the play. It was, these ideas, they I mean, what happened to Bill was he got, I think, halfway through the first book in the trilogy and thought, yes, I'm going to base my entire life upon what I have read in this first half of the first book in the trilogy. So he went out to get some araldite. Ken Campbell sent him out to get some araldite. Bill never came back. And I mean, Bill went out. He actually did get a submarine. I don't know whether he painted it yellow or gold, but sort of, I bet he wanted to.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he formed the Justified Ancients of Moo. He was living the dream. It was an incredibly powerful book.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, and I got into Robert Anton Wilson's broader writing from after reading the Illuminatus and thoroughly enjoying that. I actually, at the time when I was reading that, I actually went down to the local library and started looking up the Illuminatus, the Illuminati, and I came across this brilliant account of a meeting in Paris where Adam Weishaupt, the head of the Bavarian Illuminati, he was present, as was, I think, I've forgotten his first name. His name was Knigge, who was a deputy of Weishaupt in the Illuminati. They were both there, and so was the Comte de Saint-Germain, the allegedly immortal. No, he wasn't really. But he was a kind of charlatan occultist. I believe he was mainly interested in promoting a new dyeing process, which is a bit paradoxical for somebody who was supposed to be an immortal. But no, this was the other sort of dyeing. But they were all there at this conference, and at one point, according to the transcript that I read in this dusty old book down the library, which must have been semi-contemporary, it was saying that Adam Weishaupt had said that women and suffragettism are the future, and that if the Illuminati wish to influence the future, then they should infiltrate women's groups and they should support women's groups. And I thought, I can't believe that Robert Anton Wilson knew about this, because I can't see him having missed the opportunity to claim that modern feminism is part of an Illuminati plot, you know. But it's really fascinating, and it was probably a lot of the ideas of Robert Wilson that actually led to me becoming a magician in 93, 94. That seemed to be the way that things were going. There were perceptions, ideas that I had had over the years that didn't fit in with a conventional view of reality, which seemed to make more sense in the kind of multi-model approach that Wilson suggests.
It's like quantum belief systems, and you choose in between. Which
you choose it, and it collapses down to that one system, to that one reality tunnel, if you like.
Reality tunnels,
It's no, I thought that Wilson was an incredibly important man, and I was delighted when Daisy sort of, kind of revived the entire project, the entire current.
Well, we're here basically because of Daisy, people like Daisy and things.
Well, actually, we're here because of Howard Marks.
Because of Howard Marks, actually. But Howard we had some happenings a bit ago. Howard was going to do them, and then he got ill with a cancer and couldn't do it, so we had to fill that big void.
There were like 5 different dates, and we had to find someone to be the main, and some big shoes to fill.
We were buzzing off the KLF book that John had written, and it was getting passed around us, and we were all, and there'd been a lot of stuff happening, because when you start thinking like this, a lot of stuff happens around you. There's a lot of synchronicities and things.
Yes, I mean, like,
happens, you notice it.
We did a review of the Cosmic Trigger book that has just been reissued.
That John did
John's
before.
done
I believe that Robert Wilson's estate and family have got the rights back to all of his books, so these are kind of the definitive editions. And John did the introduction to the Cosmic Trigger. I've done a new introduction to Coincidence,
Oh yeah, I've got that in my bag.
And has that just come out then?
No, I've got the old
Oh,
one.
the old one.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant book. I mean, like,
Never read it.
It's great. You really should check it out. It sounds a bit dense because it's all about James Joyce.
Yes.
But there again, in reading the book, you realise actually the entire universe is about James Joyce, or James Joyce is about the entire universe. I'm not sure which. But the thing is that I think me and John are probably going to give a false impression of English Discordian anarchists in that I hadn't read John's introduction when I wrote mine, so I went on at quite great length about Daisy's rainbow knickers that she put on the head of Carl Jung on his book, which I was saying, I mean, I got her to send me a picture of that, a photograph of her knickers on Carl Jung's head, because for very personal reasons, because I'd got a bit of a grudge against Carl Jung. Because of the unforgivable way in which he treated Lucia Joyce. Lucia Joyce was the daughter of James Joyce, a brilliant dancer during the 1920s, who at one point people said, yeah, in the future, James Joyce will be known as Lucia's father. That's how good she was. And then she started acting up, and her mother and her brother particularly seemed very keen to have her put into psychiatric institutions. She was in one such institution in France when the Nazis invaded, who had already said that they were going to purge the mentally and physically weak. Her dad was trying to get her out of France. He died of, I think, peritonitis while that was going on. But it must have worked because she went through a series of asylums before ending up in Northampton at the St Andrews home, where John Clare also lived, and a lot of celebrities. Patrick McGowan, he passed through there once. Wow. Dusty Springfield, you know. And me and Melinda had our wedding reception there, you know. We thought that was lovely. But, I mean, like, the thing is, when Lucia Joyce passed through the care of Carl Jung, he really hadn't liked her dad's book because the dreams presented in Ulysses are nothing like his theory of dreams. So rather than treating Lucia as a young woman who really needed help, he treated her as one of her dad's books that was in need of criticism. So I was really glad that sort of Daisy's rainbow knickers ended up on his head. But the thing is, I read in John's introduction that he's talking about Daisy's rainbow knickers, so they're going to get the impression that we're all obsessed with Daisy's knickers. You know, it's
why not?
Well, why not? I suppose it's yeah.
Like you just mentioned that, like I got to ask you about Jerusalem. I've got to ask you about Jerusalem. You gave last time I saw you in Brighton. You gave me this cover of the book.
Oh yeah,
on the poster.
Yeah. And I've sat home looking at it, and you were talking me through some of the things on the cover, and I'd just like to go through it. You know, some of the things that on it, because I think it's really interesting. It's got a whole it's like a whole little world. You know, when people see it, they'll see what I mean.
Well, it does
life happening on the page.
It kind of yeah. I mean, it's a cover. I just wanted to do the cover. I'm not even saying it's particularly good.
It's brilliant.
But I wanted to do the cover because most of my books have been collaborations, and this is probably the biggest, most important thing that I shall ever do, and I wanted this to be all me.
Yeah.
So yes, I know loads of artists. I'm living with one who are much better than I am.
Yeah.
I could have asked any of them.
Beautiful picture.
But I really wanted to do that cover.
It's beautiful, and it's got so much in, and you were explaining to me all the little bits. You know, just tell us some about some of the characters.
Well, I mean, like Lucia Joyce, who we were just talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
She is, I think, third down from the top. I mean, like this cover, it's a view of the street that I used to live on, which has since been demolished. But the central house in the row, which was pretty much where our house was, that is swelling up into this enormous tower that provides the body of this angel figure with his hands upraised and the sun behind him as a halo. And the open front walls of this tower kind of gives you access to all of these little rooms in a stack in which scenes from the novel are kind of taking place. At the very top there is a glowing cross. This was the stone cross that was brought by a monk in around about the 9th century. He'd been on a pilgrimage to Golgotha in Jerusalem, where he'd suddenly noticed a bit of oddly smooth and carven stone sticking up. He dug it and it turned out to be an ancient stone cross. And he thought, oh, well, this is the site of the crucifixion. I've found an ancient stone cross. This is probably significant. At which point an angel apparently appeared, that they were a lot more common in the, I believe there's been a great dieback since those times, but angels back then, they were quite 10 a penny, frankly. The angel turned up and said, yeah, this is really important. You should take this and place it at the centre of your land. Now, this monk actually came from England, and I'm guessing he came from the Medeshamsted Abbey in Peterborough. But anyway, he was halfway up what is now Horseshoe Street in Northampton, and he thought, Jesus Christ, I cannot carry this thing a step further. I really, really hope that by some chance this exact spot where I'm standing now might be the centre of the land. At which point the angel turns again and says, lucky guess, you know, yeah, put it here. And so it was put in the wall of St Gregory's Church, where it became an object of pilgrimage itself for hundreds of years, until, being Northampton, we pulled the church down and lost it. Right. But that's resurrected in the top room. Under that we've got two women made of flame, who are standing near a bunch of barrels. This would be the elemental spirits that I portray in Jerusalem, who are responsible for the Great Fire of Northampton in 1670, which I have a theory which I'm told is flawed, but I'm going to shove it through anyway, that the town burnt down very, very quickly in 1670, apparently about 20 minutes from one end to the other, the whole town.
Wow.
It was a smaller town then, but still 20 minutes, that was going it. And it had got a good west wind behind it, but that still seemed awfully fast to me. My theory was that Northampton has always been known for leather, because we had a lot of cows here and we had a lot of oak trees. So, yeah, the cows are for the hides, the oak trees are for the tannin in the bark, which you need to make shoes and gloves, which is what we traditionally made here. Thus, we would have had loads of barrels of tannin around the market square and in lots of businesses in the cellars, and tannin is an accelerant. It's like a kind of rocket fuel. So that's why you've got the two burning women who are looking down smugly at the rest of the scene. Underneath them, I think you've got Lucia Joyce dancing on the Madhouse lawn in her blue fish costume.
Dead kids as well.
There's right at the bottom. There's a little group of dead children. You can't tell they're dead. They're just. But in the story, they dominate the middle third of the book. A group of dead kids who have formed a gang called the Dead Gang, which is a name that came to me in a dream about 30, 40 years ago. But which I always remembered just because it was so strange. The dead gang, you know. So, I mean, lots of bits of dreams have found their way into Jerusalem, you know.
Imagine.
But yeah, so you've got them. You've got a couple sitting on the front steps of All Saints Church.
That's just near the market.
That is the one, that the big Gothic church overlooking the market.
Yes,
And
women throwing themselves through from the windows because of it. I remember you telling me that.
yeah, that was it. Down in the street, you've got a woman throwing herself out of the window
Because of it.
because of it. Well, it was it being it was. This was something I read in a brilliant book that was written on the boroughs called In Living Memory. It was only a little book that was locally published, but it had got testimony from actual residents of the boroughs, people who'd lived there before me and my family lived there. And they were talking about how, a lot of the women down the boroughs, they committed suicide. They threw themselves out of windows. They tried to gas themselves. And generally, the attempts didn't work because the houses down the boroughs weren't very high. So you'd just probably get a pair of broken legs to add to your miseries. And one of them was saying, for the men, it wasn't so bad because they were out at work, but the women, they were left at home with it. And I've got one of the characters in the book, one of the dead gang, one of these kids, remembering when he'd heard that when he was very young and had thought, I wonder what it was, and imagined it as perhaps some sort of gigantic earwig that just sat there in the chair and you could do nothing but look at it and weep. But then later he realised that it was just ordinary despair. You know, and we've got in the main bit of the angel's chest, there is a balcony with people from various historical times standing on it chatting. There is a round head looking very bored with the exploding suicide bomber standing next to him.
Right.
There's a cavalier standing a bit further along. There's a kind of a 18th century clergyman and a sort of a Bronze Age hunter. These are just characters on the balconies of Mansole, which is Mansole was the name given to Northampton by John Bunyan in his book The Holy War. He called Northampton Mansole, and I thought, that makes a certain amount of sense. So I've called the higher Northampton that I portray in the book this kind of fourth dimensional Northampton that's above this one. That is called Mansole. You've got a group of angels playing pool. 4 angels playing pool at an enormous table. This was an idea that I had early on. It relates to, billiards became popular just after the Civil War. And the Civil War, we were very big on that here. We were huge Cromwell supporters. We had our castle pulled down largely because we'd kept the king under house arrest here for 6 months or whatever it was until Cromwell could change the law and behead him. For which Charles II, he got a bit of a grudge. He couldn't let it go, so he had the castle pulled down. But I mean, like.
Is your brother on there as well?
Oh, my brother, he is on there in a couple of forms. He's there as an older man, and he's there as a tousle-haired little tot who was much prettier than me, but nowhere near as intelligent.
The flatbed truck story you told me as well.
Oh yeah, that he was taken to. I mean, this is the centre of Jerusalem. Is this story about how, when he was 3, 5, something like that, very small, he'd got a sore throat and had been told by the doctor, "Oh, he's just got a sore throat. Give him cough sweets." My mum, who was very obedient to any middle-class person, particularly if they were a doctor, she did just that, and she got him a packet of cherry menthol tunes. And I remember he'd actually got a terrible case of tonsillitis, and his airway had sort of shrunk to something very tiny. So actually the last thing he needed was a cherry menthol tune, which actually blocked this airway. And I remember his eyes just kind of switched off. He didn't move, he wasn't breathing, he was just gone. And there was nobody in the area had a telephone, nobody in the area had transport. Apart from, in the yard next door to our house, there was a busted down flatbed truck that was used for delivering vegetables. And after a couple of minutes of my mother and my gran trying to get my brother breathing again in the back garden, the guy next door realised what was happening and said that he would drive my mum and my brother to the hospital. Now, even in 1959 or whenever it was, that's still quite a journey. I would say a bare minimum of 5 minutes, even if you were flying and there was no other traffic. More probably 10. Added to the couple of minutes that they'd already spent trying to get this thing out of his throat in the back. We didn't know about Heimlich manoeuvres back then.
Right.
So, as I understand it, I think brain death is 2.5 minutes without breathing. And I think after about 10 or 15 minutes, that's generally all over death.
Yeah, that's it.
However, they got him to the hospital, they fished the cough sweet out of his throat. They said, this child has got the worst case of tonsillitis we've ever seen. They whipped his tonsils out. He was back with us by the end of the week. I mean, I've always said to him, yeah, that's where you got the brain damage. Because I'm an older brother and that's what we've fought.
That's what you do.
But at the same time, it did leave a question. At the time, we didn't question it, but in later life, I thought, yeah, that was pretty strange. He must have been technically dead for 5 minutes there. So that gives me, those 5 minutes give me the opportunity to actually, I can fill in fiction where he was during those 10 minutes, which in the time frame of the book, it's actually a couple of weeks experience time when he's running around with the dead gang in this fourth dimensional afterlife.
And as we were talking before, time happens simultaneously. Everything occurs at the same time. So
this is the whole point of Jerusalem, that it is to express the idea that I found out a few years after starting the book. I found out that this idea is called eternalism, apparently. It's the idea that, as we were saying, if this is a solid universe, then we exist in that universe as fourth dimensional entities. I imagine it as a bit like a kind of a space-time centipede. It would have a lot of arms and a lot of legs, yes, and it would extend from its tail, would be emerging from between our mother's legs. Sort of, it would have its origins in genetic fluids. Its far end would be cremated dust. And it's perhaps maybe, 70, 80 years long. But the thing is, and this centipede-like life form is a little filament that is embedded in this huge, eternally unmoving, unchanging mass of space-time. And it is just our consciousness moving along these centipede-like lines and experiencing each moment as if it was in a sequence. Whereas, in fact, it's like a strip of film. That all of those little moments on the strip of film, they're not moving, they're not changing. You can keep that strip of film for 100 years and those pictures will not have changed, they will not have moved. Only when we turn the projector beam, or by analogy, our consciousness, only when we run that over those images, does Charlie Chaplin do his funny walk? Does he sort of thwart the baddie? Does he get the girl? do we have the appearance of a story, a narrative and motives and cause and effect and all of those things? Whereas actually it's just these frozen individual moments with our consciousness moving between them. Now that would mean that in that huge block of space-time, every moment that has ever existed or will ever exist are all existing coterminously at the same time, including all of those moments that made up our lives and the lives of everybody that we knew. And the one thing that we can definitely say about those lives is that we were alive during them. And if this is an unchanging and unmoving universe, then we're still alive during them. Because everything back there in the past, you know, the fact that there's no decent telly on a Saturday night, all those buildings that we love, they got pulled down, those people that we liked, they ended up dying. Sort of Spangles, they don't make them anymore. But back there down the road, that stuff is still going on, and we're still there. And when we get to the end of our lives, it seemed to me that the only place that our consciousness would have to go is back to the beginning.
So you're talking about eternal recurrence, in a sense?
Eternal recurrence, which was an idea that I found out that Nietzsche had come up with, although he didn't have the benefits of modern science. So he was talking about, in an infinite universe, you're going to get the same planet repeated potentially an infinite number of times. So right down to the smallest detail. So that's what he meant. But we haven't got an infinite universe. It's very big, but it isn't infinite. Whereas I found out after writing 400,000 words of Jerusalem, 2/3 of the way through, I found out that Einstein, a few months before his own death, was consoling the widow of a fellow physicist. And he said to her, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, he said, well, to physicists such as myself and your husband, death isn't really a big issue because we understand the persistent illusion of transience. And I thought, that is a beautiful phrase, the persistent illusion of transience. It's 5 words long. If I had read this before I started this novel, I probably could have saved myself sort of several 100,000 words, you know, because that says it beautifully. The illusion that people are dying, that things are going away, that the stuff that we're not... It's like if you were in a car travelling along a road and you thought, oh, that's a nice house I'm passing. Oh, it's gone now. And you assumed that the house must have immediately been demolished the second you passed it. That it's not still back there down the road, you know. That was a central thing of Jerusalem because I wanted to give people... The thing is, even if that turns out not to be true, and I genuinely believe it sounds to me as if it is, but even if that turns out not to be true, if you lived according to that, you would have a better life.
Yeah, of course.
It's not like my gran, who lived in immense poverty for years because she knew that when she got to heaven, the first should be last and the last should be first, and it was richer. It was more difficult for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than for a camel, and all of that stuff, which meant that she put up with a life which was far less than the one that she deserved. And as did probably most of my family. I don't think that religious promise, I think that betrays a lot of people.
It does.
And whereas if you start thinking, right, this is eternity right here, this moment is eternity right here, my life is an eternal thing, how do I want to live it? If I'm going to be living it for eternity, how do I want to live my life? Wouldn't I rather be happy? Wouldn't I rather be fulfilled? Wouldn't I rather have not done anything that I can't live with for eternity? And also, I wanted to give people this idea because to give them some options. because even scientists admit you live longer if you have a belief system. If you have a belief system that makes sense to you, you will live longer and you'll probably have a happier life. I wanted to give people a possibility that did not necessarily involve God. I mean, yeah, you can have God in this system if you want him or her, but there's no necessity for a God. The eternal life, in my estimation, would be an emergent property of space-time itself and of consciousness. So, yeah, because we are becoming, as a world, less religious.
Yes.
And this is true in even unexpected places like Ireland, America, and in some Islamic countries.
Yeah.
Although perhaps not so unexpected if you think about the way that our major religions have comported themselves in recent years. You could see how that could put anybody off. So I wanted to give people another alternative where they didn't have to put all their faith into some paradise that was all going to be gold and marble like a 1980s plasterer's bathroom.
Later on.
Yeah, later on.
Yeah.
Let's have jam today.
Yeah.
I've just had a nod that we've only got, I think, 10 minutes to go.
I want to ask
There's-
about... go on.
there's so
I want
much-
to ask
there's other-
about, because we were talking before, I don't think we got it in, about you, when you was 40, saying that you were a magician and not truly understanding all that, but then
Art and magic.
learning it as you went along and
we are-
actually becoming that thing that you said you were going to be. You know, the utterance, making it true. That whole, magic.
Okay.
And art, you know.
Okay, well,
Sorry.
I mean, my ideas on art and magic, they've sharpened recently with the conclusion of the Bumper Book of Magic, which is nearly finished. But the concluding essay, we give a definition of magic as we define it, which is that magic is a purposeful engagement with the phenomena and the possibilities of consciousness. We believe that it is a science of consciousness. We believe that it arose naturally when about 70,000 years ago, during what is, I believe, referred to as the cognitive revolution. This is where we came up with spoken language, and all of a sudden we made this immense leap forward.
Yeah.
Our consciousness became very, very different. Now, what would that have seemed like to us? I mean, the writer Julian Jaynes talks about how to early men and early women, the voices in their heads, which we think, oh, that's just me thinking, it could have been nothing but the voices of spirits and gods. That visions that turned up, they could only come. They didn't have an idea of consciousness. They just had consciousness without knowing what it was. So what we thought was, thus, magic originally was a science of existence. It included everything. All art, all culture, starts out with a shaman dancing in the firelight. Over the centuries, the body of magic has been dismembered. With the start of settled society, you'd got people didn't have to grow their own food, so they could specialise.
Yes.
So they became priests. And, all right, you've got a formal religion then, so you took away the spiritual aspect of shamanism. You've got those bastards, artists and writers and musicians coming into being, who took away that visionary aspect from shamanism. Then you've got various other stages in society which only left natural science and medicine. Then you've got the Renaissance, and even that was taken away, and all that you'd got left was the inner world and just the theatre and the costumes of magic. Then in 1910, Sigmund Freud comes along and takes away the inner world, And all that magic has got left then is just the hollow posturing, the incantations, the nice frocks, you know. That is, I believe, the process of solve. That is the alchemical process of taking things apart until they are completely disassembled and you understand them completely. It's analysis.
Yes.
And that has to be followed by coagula, which is putting it all back together again. And that is, I think, what is possibly happening now.
Yes.
And I have never been more certain that art and magic are exactly the same thing. These are all phenomena. They are all a purposeful engagement with the phenomena and possibilities of consciousness.
Yeah, the underlying information of the universe.
Yes.
Yeah.
That super weird substance.
Exactly. No, nobody is. That's what we got that from you. We got it from you.
And I got it from New Scientist, you know, so...
Alan, we could like, we could sit here forever. But they're telling us we've got to wind it up here. And but absolutely wonderful.
Thank you so
and
much.
to everybody at the festival, do have a hell of a time. I'm sorry I'm not there, but I am certainly there in my Discordian spirit.
Thank you,
Thank
Alan.
you, sir.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.